I'm Matt Godbolt.
And I'm Ben Rady.
And this is Two's Complement, a programming podcast. Hey, Ben.
Hey, Matt.
How are things?
Great.
It's that time of the week when I say, hey, Ben, and then you say, hey, Matt, and then we talk about something.
Yep.
Have you just any idea what that thing should be? Because I've planned carefully and I have nothing.
Right. No, I do. I have a thing. I started.
Okay, let's talk about
this week.
All right, what are we going to talk about?
Careful listener of this podcast may recall that I have talked before about having a period in my career where I tried to learn a new programming language every year. Mm-hmm. This year's new programming language is English. It's all the rage. But in addition to that,
I've heard it. Or American or English?
English. It's English. It's English.
Oh, okay.
Right? I mean, you got to put some U's in some places, I guess, if you really
want to
call it
certainly
English.
Do. And far fewer Z's than you would put in, and you would call them Z's.
Right. Some S's instead of Z's.
That's right.
Is this like the German translation is where you just take all the spaces out?
I think that's pretty much what German is. German is just English, but with random capital letters in the middle of the word and no spaces between words and what describe them. Yeah,
exactly.
Is there anyone we haven't offended yet? Let's just. Okay. Programming in English. So tell me about your new language you're programming in, which I mean.
So I have kind of just I've had on my list, and I say like jokingly that the new programming language is English. I've had a number of programming languages on this list of like if I ever get back to this practice, because I kind of fell out of it because I was sort of like, what language could I learn that would allow me to do something that I can't do in an existing language, right? Like, if you've never built a web application before and you don't know JavaScript, then
you're probably right. That's interesting.
Like, I can do this. I couldn't do this before. Right?
Okay. Or like a HDL for like, hey, I'm programming an FPGA and I can make lights blink in a new and exciting way, but I can't write this in Java. And so maybe I need to learn something else. And it's a paradigm shift that goes alongside the language. It makes you think. I mean, I think, what is it? The Sapir-Whorf hypothesis thing that says, like the language you first learn sort of tempers however. And my first language was, machine code and assembly. So that definitely has tempered my entire experience in my career. But like, there are definitely languages that force you to think in different ways.
Yes.
Be it like a prologue type language that first bends your mind and go, oh, I see, you can specify things this way, or a Lispy thing where then you're like exposed to the fact that the representation is the language and all that good stuff. So, but yeah, English though, but I'm pretty familiar with English.
Yeah. Well, okay. So the spoiler alert, the language that I am trying to teach myself basically starting this week is Rust. And I have used Rust before. But the sort of like new idea around all of this is in the way that I teach myself this language. So previously, the way that I had always done this was I came up with some project, right? And that was sort of the relationship between like, hey, I'm going to learn a new language to be able to do this kind of thing. And I'm going to learn that by doing the thing. And then I will, learn the language, and then I will be very confident that I can do the thing, right?
Right. I want to write a ray tracer. I go write it in Rust, and I get it. Maybe you've done it 10 times before, or it's something completely new. Like, I get it. Yeah.
And the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis reason for doing that is also a good reason. I've told people, people ask me for advice on, what should I do in my career? How should I be a better programmer? And I still give this advice out. I'm like, how many programming languages do you know? You should try to learn more of them. Because of two things. One is you will be able to do more things, and also it will expand your mind in terms of how things work. I love Clojure as a programming language because it's fun. I wouldn't inflict it on anyone right now other than sort of a maybe learning exercise, but it's a fantastic learning exercise. If you've never used a Lisp before, it's awesome.
Funny you mentioned that, because when I first moved to this country, one of the first things I ended up doing was working with one of our mutual friends on a system that was all in Clojure. And I was completely it took me a while to get over the hump of what the heck is this? Why are we doing this? It seems like we're doing it on hard mode, to, oh, no, this is pretty neat, to the penny dropping and me going like, oh, I get this now. I see functional programming languages as being useful. I see Lisp-like languages. I see, wow. And, I have not chosen to go back to it, but I do feel like I'm enriched as a programmer by having had that experience.
Yes. And it's an intersubjective experience, to use one of our favorite podcast words, because if you have used a Lisp before, then you can talk to someone else who has used a Lisp before,
right,
and be like, this is just let over lambda, and they'll know what you mean, right? So those are many reasons to learn programming languages, and I highly recommend that people do. What I am doing this week is I am attempting to learn a programming language, not by building something that is, I think, a representation of what would be good for that language. In fact, I am trying to learn a programming language by not writing any code at all.
Oh.
What I am trying to do is learn a programming language by asking Claude to teach me the language and quiz me on whether or not I know it.
Oh.
And I am just going back and forth, like taking snippets of code, being like, what does this do? Okay, explain this, explain that, explain that. Okay, now quiz me on all of the concepts that you just taught me.
Wow.
And see if I get it right. And then I ask follow-up questions to all of that.
That's not what I thought you were going to say at all. I just figured you were going to say, yeah, I asked it to write the thing for me, and I skimmed the code afterwards. And I was about to bring up all the kind of like the badnesses of like, the quote, I forget who, it's not Carpathy, but it's one of, I think he retweeted it, something along the lines of like, LLMs let you outsource thinking, but not knowledge. Right. Or experience, that kind of feel. And that's like, I'm definitely feeling a bit of that in my day job right now. It's like, oh yeah, I don't necessarily know this as well as I should do. I'm very effective at what I'm doing. But if someone comes, but no, tell me more about this approach.
Well, yeah. And it's a lot of this sort of comes from, it would be bold to call this a realization, because I don't really know that it's fully true. But my suspicion is that it is going to be increasingly important for software engineers to read code in the future.
I think even as you get more senior, I think that's become true.
Yeah.
As you end up mentoring more folks and they ask your opinion of code and whatnot, and maybe you spend more time, either explicitly reviewing PRs or just over people's shoulders helping them. So I think reading code is important.
It's always been important. It's always been very important. I think it's going to become even more important.
Right.
And
until we teach the robots to review it, and then at what point will that flip? And then it's like we're writing code and the robots are telling us not to do it that way.
I mean, so the code is always, I think, at this point, I think I could say that the code is always going to be the actual source of truth, right? Like there's enough well-worn, and you could certainly point out some situations in which source code and what the machine is actually doing do not line up in a consistent way. Like that is certainly possible.
Yeah.
But it is, I think, much less likely than the delta between what the code is doing and what the English that created the code in a prompt is doing, right? Like the code
I think that's a fair assessment. Yeah.
It's like a really good source of truth if you're going to pick a source of truth for like, what is this program actually doing, right?
Yeah.
And so being able to read that is really important.
It's funny, actually. So somebody tweeted at me or whatever, not tweet, but, the current whatever hacky-dermy thing with the thing that like someone was saying, LLMs will be to code as C is to assembly code. Nobody looks at the output of a compiler, ha 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 ha. And of course, it's like at compiler explorers, like everybody, the reason this exists is so that we can, because we don't trust it and we do this. So I think that backs up your point. I think there's always need to look one layer below, right? We've talked about this before, the various layers of things, and like each abstraction or layer brings something to the party, and you learn to trust it in some different ways. But ultimately, you need to be able to like look down and go, no, whatever. And for those folks who say, we just give it English and we just get a binary out at the end of it. It's like, no, the kind of differentiability of the intermediate forms of, say, code is useful. I mean, we typically don't diff the binaries and get anything useful out of it, right? That doesn't seem useful. But the thing that generates the binary, like the concepts from that, makes sense, that I can look at something I've asked the AI to do and say, is this a reasonable way of achieving what you did, given what was working before and I trust? So yeah, anyway. So you've been, reading code is an important skill. There we are. I've just remembered where we're going with this.
Yeah. So this whole exercise is an experiment in what if I learned a programming language by reading it. Now, I think you and I have talked before about both of our brains really work best when we sort of get down into the nitty gritty and like step by step build a thing. And it's like, that's how we really, really, really understand something. And so I am trying to push myself to grow the skill of being able to have like ideally an equivalent level of understanding of code that I am just reading. And I'm trying to start that. Like, I may not get there, but just move in that direction. I'm trying to start that by this experiment of like, can I say that I am fluent in Rust, having written basically no Rust, right? Like, can I achieve that? I don't know that I can, but that's what this journey is all about.
I am very skeptical that you could do any more than you could read every book that says how to drive a car and then get or land a plane, or those kinds of things, right? They feel like things that you have to do a little bit to be able to do well. But then there may be humans that do this. I mean, there are very bright people out there who learn and think in very different ways to the way that I do.
Yeah.
So I remain skeptical, but I think what you're doing is really interesting. So how's it going so far? I mean, it's been like how many days? You've only been doing this a couple of days.
I've been doing this for like 3 days.
All right.
And it's going really well. And one thing is that, of course, like Claude, and I'm sure the LLM of your choice would do this, is shockingly good at coming up with good pointed questions to test my understanding, because it knows what my understanding is, because it taught me all those things, right? So, and being able, the other thing that has been really nice is being able to compare it to other languages, kind of getting back to our earlier point about like those concepts that you bring in from other programming languages. I'm like, what would this look like in Python? How does this compare to Java? What would this look like in Ruby? How does this compare to JavaScript? And like finding all those little things where you can, because I feel like a lot of people learn this way, where they map, right? They're mapping
right. Sort of
concepts from one
like
thing
X but not Y part.
Right.
Or something like that. Yeah. But so are you physically writing any of this? Are you purely reading it? This is because I can imagine it being like the best tutor, where you're like, it's grading you and asking you and saying, and it's even setting you little challenges and saying, okay, now write something which command line parses and does blah 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 blah. But you've not written anything.
I have not written everything. Now it wouldn't surprise me if Claude kind of invents a write me a function that does this kind of question, and I will just do that if it does that. But I am not prompting it to do that. And thus far, everything has been basically like, explain what's wrong with this code, right? Or explain why this works, right? And it's been very good. It's been very good.
The sycophancy of these things leads me to think that maybe it would be a little bit forgiving to you. Well done. Yes, you got it right. Oh, just this one minor thing. And you look at it and you're like, no, that's terribly important.
It does say things like, well, you got it mostly right, but here's the thing that you missed. And it's like, oh, you got the concept right, but here, this thing is wrong. Like I haven't been able to, because I haven't developed enough of an understanding yet. And like, again, the last time I wrote Rust was like 10 years ago. So like at this point, I basically have forgotten.
You've forgotten most of it. Yeah, you understand.
I remember the basic structure of the language. And
looks a bit like C with the types the opposite way around to normal, and then something borrow checker. There you go. Right, Rust.
It's like, there's no inheritance, and you lend and borrow, and there's no garbage collector, and there's no free, right? But like, I haven't gotten deep enough into this to have found a situation where it failed to point out something that I had said that was wrong. Like in retrospect, I realized that something was wrong. Again, I'm 3 days into this, so maybe not surprising that I haven't hit that yet, but it's definitely something that I am concerned about. And also just on the obvious thing of like, how do you know that the LLM is right?
Okay,
like,
that's true.
That's like a base level skepticism that everyone should have with any kind of exercise like this. You're learning from, whatever LLM. How do you know it's not giving you bogus information?
Yeah.
One of the things that I think is going to be unavoidable probably with this is I need some external validation of the concepts that I'm learning. And obviously the thing that I would reach for is, well, go write a friggin' program and then you'll know. But I'm trying to like not do that if I don't have to do that, right?
This seems timely, but a website that some people refer after my last name has got an MCP now. So you can just add the endpoint of your choice. I will use compilerexplorer.com/MCP. And then all the languages and all the execution and everything are available to it. So you could tell your LLM. I mean, obviously, it could also write the stupid thing locally and run your own local Rust toolchain and all that good stuff. But for small snippets, it might be useful to say, hey, I can do this on the go. You can add it in like the web version of your favorite LLM tool if you're having just a regular chat with it, and it can go off and do the needful things there, which has been an interesting journey in how do you give LLMs what they need without overwhelming them with tokens kind of thing, which on my side, but that's a whole other story. I don't want to derail totally, but
filling up way too much context.
Yeah.
One of the more interesting elements of this is, previously when I had been doing this, learning a new language by building a project, it was very much like, okay, I'm gonna get my laptop and I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna plug in the monitors, I'm gonna put on some music, and I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna code. And that was like a very like focused activity that was restricted in when and where I could do it, right? Now I can do this on the train home. I just pull out my phone, pull up the chat that I have running with Claude, and be like, okay, what does this operator do here? Like, what is this thing? And you just kind of keep it going.
It's right? That for me has become very valuable. The ability to essentially continue useful knowledge work while on the move, be it through remote control of a session that I've got running somewhere else, be it through exactly as you describe. I've got a number of long-lived projects that have me trying to understand. I'm laughing because it's so sad. Trying to understand, how 1980s television signals were encoded and decoded. For reasons we'll talk about hopefully on another podcast. But and that is very valuable. And you can say, I've just been thinking about this thing like I'm walking the dog. What about that? How does that bit work? How do you know that this is true? And then it's a useful thing. And, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, maybe even 20 years ago, you would just Google it, right? It would be Google search and you would find it. And then you'd be like, oh, this is cool. And you find someone's blog page that talks about that thing and you scroll down till you find it. And then, maybe the 10 or 15 years ago, you start looking at the synopsis thing that appears at the top of this pre-AI, like, hey, did you mean this thing? And I'm like, oh, I did actually. Fine. I got the answer to it, which obviously was, it had its own bag of problems, like, well, now Google aren't actually sending you to the webpage that had the information on it, which means they don't get the hit. Now, of course, you do get the AI summary at the top, which I think it's funny. I don't know if you perceive this or not, but the tide seems to have turned from we hate this to mostly indifference and occasional, oh, that was handy. Certainly at dinner table conversations with my family have gone from, well, this is stupid, ha ha ha, to, oh, it says this, and you're like, oh, for that. But yeah, all these things are really valuable ways of being on the move and being able to continue doing something. But I wonder if that comes with a different problem of, burnout, right? We've talked about this before, where you're managing 12 different chats and trying to make progress and whatever, and now you can't get away from the stupid thing. Sorry, that was a real derail, but yeah.
No, it's not. I mean, it's all related to this, right? It's if this, I was going to say, if this works, and then it's like, how would I know if it worked?
Yeah.
Right.
How do you test this? Right.
Well, yeah, kind of. I mean, it's sort of like, okay, I claim that I am fluent in a programming language. What do you use to back up that claim?
Is there a distinction between fluidity to read and fluidity to write too? Because I mean, like, so fluidity to read to me means that you understand everything that you will likely see in the language.
Yeah.
And you are capable of then applying your sort of experience and your intelligence and your, I guess experience, right, to say, I think this is a good way of doing this. This seems fine to me. There are no issues. There are no bugs. The tests are good. All that stuff, right? And that is still fundamentally different from, given a blank page, make a Rust project that does X.
Yeah.
It does seem like a different skill set.
Certainly in any time in the past, if someone had come to me and they had said, well, I am a, C++ expert, but in reading only, I would have been like, oh, wait, you're serious. Right.
Yeah,
like what? So
Is it like, like a foreign language, to go back to our original language
Yeah,
thing?
like you can hear it, but you can't speak it, something like that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
or reading. I could read a book in French,
Yeah.
say, and you'd be like, "That's one thing." But if you drop me in Paris, I'd be a
Right.
bit SOL, really.
I mean, maybe it is just as simple as that, is that they actually are just separate skills. And if you learn one, you'll get better at the other one incidentally, but you actually do have to learn both skills, right? Like that
So the thing
probably
that
is the
I would
simplest way to
wonder
think about it.
that one might miss in a read only training model like you're doing is, those kinds of things where you've the 15th time you've done something, you're like, there must be a better way to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And then you experiment yourself with different
Mm-hmm.
ways of doing it. Like, hey, can I use reflection to, like, oh yeah, I can. Wait a second. I don't have to declare this stuff at all. I can
Yeah.
pull it out of the structures or whatever, reflection's top of mind because of C++ has just gained it. So I'm thinking of all the silly things you can do with it. But like, when do you have those galaxy brain moments of inspiration? If you're just reading, it seems too passive to me for you to kind of go like, I've read this 40 times, there must be a better way, and then be able to come up with that better way, having only ever read code. And, I don't know if I don't know if I believe that. I'm just thinking out loud.
Yeah. Well, here's a thought experiment. So let's say that I do this, and then I do what I would normally do, and I just sit down and I write a Rust program, right? Yeah. How would you be able to tell the difference versus what I would have done before, right?
How would you? Yeah.
Like, congratulations, you wrote something in Rust. That was your original plan for every other language that you've learned.
Yeah. What would
be the difference? Like, do I do it faster? Do I have like fewer questions?
Yeah.
Like the result would be the same, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
How do you tell that the reading exercise actually made any difference at all? Like, I could feel it.
I mean, I suppose, but if you did sit down and then you realized, actually, I can't write something,
right.
You can sort of like do the opposite. You can say like, okay, yeah, I am proficient in reading, and it would be a cluster for me to actually sit down and write anything more complicated, because like, I can't create something. I suppose it's like it's an art. Say there's a reason why book authors are not also book critics in the same way that book critics, there are sort of like I'm sure there are a number of authors who can critique their own work and other people's work and whatever, but like there's a sort of like a creative process that's happening in the construction of something new that perhaps it's hard to tickle when you're just reading. I'm not saying you couldn't, like, I certainly admit, if someone sends me a PR and I look at it, I'm like, no, there's a completely new way of doing this. Let me sketch it out for you. Then I'm doing that part. It's not like that doesn't happen, but like it seems like the activation energy to start doing that is much higher than, yeah, that seems okay to me. You just got the comments in the wrong place kind of feel, right? Yeah. And I don't know whether or not that.
This also seems just like the more almost like academic way to do this, like, principled maybe, but maybe not with the right principles, where it's like, no, first you should learn all of the operators and the keywords and how everything is structured. And then, and only then, I mean, it's like programming in the 1950s maybe worked like that. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up right now.
First, you have to learn where to put the holes in the punch card.
Right. Like, you're just like, it's like this like unnecessary ordering of learning,
right, that
I have never done and wouldn't recommend, but I'm just kind of trying and it would be actually, I think the more interesting outcome of this, the much more interesting outcome of this is that I do this and I do this for like 3 months. And then I sit down and I'm like, okay, now I have something that I want to build in Rust. And it's like, this is just like if I had started clean slate. Like I none of the things that I've learned in the last 3 months have like, maybe I saved myself 3 days worth of work, right? Like that would be a really interesting outcome from this.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
there really is, there's no substitute for just building stuff.
It seems like reading is a valuable skill, full stop. And I think obviously your experience and your tastes and your sensibilities are already putting you way, way up in the, like, you're looking for certain patterns, and you're like, whether you express it with curly braces or indentation or lambdas that you apply or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Syntax is the easy bit, really.
Right.
So maybe, this is not necessarily a fair fight, because maybe for you, most of it is the syntax. And then after that, you're like, yeah, sure, I need to do a visitor pattern here.
Yeah.
I know how to spell that now in Rustland or whatever. Or, you've seen enough code that shows you that there is some other way of doing it in Rust that isn't the visitor spell, whatever, like the parent is. So either way, it's going to be an interesting experiment. And I think also your instincts are right that the readability of a language, as in your ability to be able to read, parse, critique code, understand code, is by far will be more useful going forward. And so if you find it difficult to then write code, well, at least you can poke holes in your own work fairly easily.
Yeah.
I'd be interested in how that comes along. Yeah.
One of the sort of maybe the last point here is, in addition to the language itself, I have also been asking it questions and prompting it to ask me questions, although this has not gone as well, about the ecosystem, because Rust ecosystem is like legendary, right, in its consistency, cargo and all of that. But I was like, okay, it's like again, like a lot of this is really easy when you do comparisons. I'm like, is there a Rust equivalent to like the Java flight recorder, which would let me like see the state of all variables and memory and heap and look at all the threads and see what their stacks look like?
Right.
And they're like, no, it's like you can do like GDB integration and you can debug and stuff like that, but that's not really there. I'm like, all right, what are the logging frameworks like? And it's like, oh, well, here's some options for logging and things like that. But I feel like there's a whole, I feel like these days, a lot of our podcasts are just recounting other podcasts, but surely at some point in the history of this podcast, I have uttered the phrase, the difference between computer science and software engineering is computer science is solving problems with computers, and software engineering is solving the problems you create when solving problems with computers. And
the second derivative.
Yes, exactly right. And so the software engineering side of Rust and sort of like the blocking and tackling of how do I actually like run something and debug it and observe it and recover from crashes and do all of the other things that you have to do when you're running software, like that's a critical part. And I think that's one of the things that you really get very well from writing a project. Like you get kind of a little narrow slice. Like you don't necessarily get the broadest view from doing that. But like, if you're like, oh, I built a thing and it does X and I went and I learned how to do it well, something that I'm happy with, like that aspect of the software engineering of that language really like clicks and is super valuable. And so I am definitely not expecting to get any of that from just reading code, because a lot of it is like, okay, staring at the stack trace being like, what is wrong with this thing?
Yeah,
I don't even know how to figure out what is wrong with this thing.
I heard though that if you write in Rust, there's just no bugs. That's what I
heard. Well, maybe that'll
that was what the word.
If it compiles, then you can't possibly have any bugs.
That's right. That's right. Sorry, that's slightly more snipey than it sounds, snarky than I mean it to be, because like it's just top of mind for like folks in the C++ community, where Rust is obviously has a lot of benefits over vanilla C++, and it keeps being touted out. Like it is still possible to have logic errors in Rust, right?
You can just have the wrong understanding of the problem. That's no language is going to save you from that.
Yeah, or an infinite loop. Again, that's no one's going to stop you from writing an infinite loop.
That's exactly right. Fun side fact: did you know that snark was a portmanteau, or is a portmanteau?
No. What is snark?
It is a portmanteau of snide remark.
Get the heck out. I figured it was Lewis Carroll, the hunting of the snark, and then it came from that somehow. Although I believe a whole bunch of words came from the nonsense poems that Lewis Carroll wrote, including, oh my gosh, there was a list of them the other day, and I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, so what two words is portmanteau made from?
And the tragedy and missed opportunity is
isn't it just?
It's why would you not do that?
I mean, I think it's the appendage on the foot of someone from Portman.
We used to have this term AR redundancy. I forget where that came from. It was for things like PIN number and ATM machine.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh.
It stands for acronym redundancy.
Oh. Yeah, that is definitely red. The thing is, out of context, if you just say pin, you might be saying, you might be referring to the sharp bit of metal that you hold things together with sometimes. But anyway, this seems like we've reached the natural end of our experiment.
Notifications in my dear listener, I'm sorry for all the dings and bings and
I know.
buzzes that just happened.
A bigger noise earlier was me throwing my phone as far away as I could because it kept making noises, and also I apologize that I left Slack on, and so if any other dings have come through, and I'm only apologizing really to our listener and me in a few hours' time when I edit this, but cool. Well, this sounds like an interesting experiment. We're going to have to. We should put a pin somewhere. And that's not a
right.
The other kind of pin in the calendar sometime to revisit this.
And
definitely. See how this worked out, because this is an interesting way of learning. Especially the thing on the train. Continuing to keep making good use of time. I mean, I use that. What a brilliant thingamajig. I'm not sponsored. But that's another thing that I'm doing to try and remind myself, like, enough of the maths that I need, plural, to help my children do whatever they need to do. Although they've really surpassed me now, but no, that's cool. All right, friend. Well, before I ramble anymore, I will bid you farewell, and we'll chat some more another time.
Until next time.
You've been listening to Two's Complement, a programming podcast by Ben Rady and Matt Godbolt. Find the show transcript and notes at www.twoscomplement.org. Contact us on Mastodon. We are at twoscomplement@hachyderm.io. Our theme music is by Inverse Phase. Find out more at inversephase.com.